praying for my friends in Illinois and my family and loved ones in Illinois, and hoping that people don't take political advantage of this, in a moment of silence to start out here on Get Right with Lenny McAllister, starting right now.
The way we help bring back America and we build the bridges and bring people together is by making sure we hold everybody accountable in a 360 fashion.
So let me close with this. Yes, there is a change that we can believe in, but it will never come from a politician or a government program.
We cannot find physical sanity here in the land of Lincoln from Carbondale to Elgin if we collectively continue to tolerate the insanity found on the streets of South Chicago and East Illinois.
We got to move away from the American Idol soundbite nature of politics and back to the American statesman of humble servant leadership that we used to see in politics.
It is time to roll out the era of the new, educated, engaged, and energized American citizen.
I go do the jail ministry. I speak to the kids in the streets. So I'm never going to lay down being a conservative just as much as I'll never lay down being a proud African American.
I feel like a black republic. Money I got coming in. Can't turn my back on the hood. I got
Yes,
love
oh
for
yes,
them.
speaking
Can't
of
clean my
people that I have
act
love
good.
for, I definitely have love for the people throughout the state of Illinois, the land of Lincoln, the prairie state, if you will. And that's what I want to talk about today on Get Right with Lenny McAllister. You know the drill. On Twitter, it's LENNYMCALLISTER. Facebook, very simple, tinyurl.com/LENNYPAGE. And just because the PA in Pennsylvania native is back in full effect, it does not mean that I have left my heart only here in Western Pennsylvania. I told folks, and I meant it, that when we moved to Chicago 3 years ago, that my wife and I, Lainey and I, planned on being members of the Chicagoland for the next 50 years. We genuinely were going to make it a home. Now, we didn't know how we were going to do schooling. We actually looked at homeschooling Neelan. This is before we even knew that our baby was coming along, because obviously when we moved there in 2010, our 7-month-old obviously wasn't born yet. But we had looked into homeschooling. We had looked at different areas to live in. We had, I'd quickly acclimated myself to being the evil twin Republican cousin of the President of the United States living across the street in Hyde Park, and had entrenched myself as that. We were going to be a fixture in Chicago, and we loved living there. We absolutely loved living there. There's no two ways about that. So when we hear about these storms that happened yesterday, it strikes us. It strikes us very, very much in the core of our gut, the core of our heart. I called down to people in Tazewell County, where Pekin and Peoria and Washington, Illinois are located. Had an opportunity to talk to people in the downstate of Illinois. Some of these areas that got hit by bad storms, maybe not the worst of it as you had in Pekin and Washington and Peoria, but areas such as Chicago, Cook County, Will County, and Kankakee County. Those are areas that I ran for office in. So I quite naturally got an opportunity to see a lay of the land quite regularly. Got a chance to spend time there, spend money there, break bread with people, laugh with people, hug people, get to know people in a very regular and intimate way. So there's a lot of prayers that we are sending out today to the folks down there in the downstate of Illinois, particularly, like I said, down in the Pekin area, the Washington, Illinois area, etc., Peoria area. But if anybody that was harmed by these storms all the way up through Chicago, the northeast corner of Illinois, you have our prayers. Those that can donate, please donate. Give something to the American Red Cross or to other organizations that can help people rebuild, especially those that lost everything. I met people at the Peoria Tea Party and other events in downstate. I spoke down there in 2011, 2012, and 2013. Had an opportunity to meet people. So I know people that have lost everything, lost their homes. In fact, I used to ride the Amtrak a lot down there, whether it was going all the way down to Springfield or going and stopping in Peoria or stopping in other areas. For example, it's escaping me. Normal, there you go. Bloomington Normal. Stopping there and getting off the train station there. I mean, you see nothing but flat just prairie land, farmland. And, when you have a wonderful sunset, it's gorgeous. I've taken many, many pictures from my cell phone, my busted old BlackBerry, before it finally decided to die on me. And I would sit there and just look out the window as I was kind of awake, kind of asleep, looking over just the beauty of it. People that are in urban areas don't understand how quiet and peaceful it is to live in an area like that. I don't know if I could live in an area like that for 30, 40 years continuously. I do like being in an urban environment, but I'm completely comfortable in those areas as well. I love driving through there, riding the train through there, staying down there with friends and family down there, and areas like that throughout the state of Illinois. People think Illinois, they think of Chicago. And some people think of East St. Louis, others think of Springfield. But Chicago's a big state, 102 counties, a lot of it farmland, a lot of it full of people that are used to a rural lifestyle and that give a lot to the country because of their royal, it is royal, but their rural lifestyle as well. So sitting here and understanding what, basically understanding what it's like to have a chance to be secluded and then have this happen to you is, it's devastating. It'd be devastating regardless. I mean, people that lost power and material possessions through the blizzard of 2011 in Chicago, cars abandoned. Some people lost their cars. I know my car failed basically a week and a half after that. It was buried under over 2 feet of snow, and then a record cold came through, and that was the end of that for my older car. So, I mean, obviously that's a small price to pay in comparison to a home or worse still, perhaps even a loved one or a life, one's own life. So I just want to make sure I put my prayers out there, my thoughts for those that I love down in the downstate. I told you all that you all have my heart, that I fell in love with you the moment I came to Illinois. I fell deeper in love with people throughout the great state of Illinois. Once I started doing speeches around the state, and then quite naturally after I ran for office, it just became a love fest that is just never going to go away. So I have a very somber mood today to talk about these storms, and I did check in with some loved ones, and they seem to be okay. They did not go through everything that our extended family went through, but there are definitely those within the extended family, whether you're talking about conservatives or you're talking about people that you're genetically related to, or in the greater sense, you're talking about the American family. There are definitely some folks down there that I've hugged, shook hands with, broken bread with, shared jokes with, talked about politics with, both agreed and disagreed with. Because believe it or not, conservatives still disagree on some issues. I know they do with me. But we had goodwill ever since 2010, and it's 3 years into a lifelong set of friendships that I have, and I'm praying for them down there. And that's why I want to get into what I want to get into in regards to the storms. I know what some conservatives generally talk about as far as smaller government, and I know that in instances like this, I actually talked about it last Wednesday with a living legend in the Democratic Party here in Western Pennsylvania about how conservatives don't want government, or they hate government until there's a storm or a natural disaster, then they want all the government they can get. I don't think that the vast majority of conservatives say that they don't want government at all, or they want government so small that it can't help in these type of situations. I mean, yeah, you have your extreme that will say something along those lines. I want my government to fit into, my back pocket. And they show you this little thin notebook, and they put it in their back pocket, and people yell. Or, you have this small version of the Constitution. I want all the government that can fit on this. And they put it in their back pocket, and the group of 30 people are excited about that. And that's rare. People believe that if you have done something through no fault of your own, if you're, for example, a farmer, which there are plenty of farmers throughout the state of Illinois, and you live on farmland that's going to be flat and rich with soil, etc., and you face a natural disaster such as a tornado, which can hit any community. I mean, it's even hit Pittsburgh, even though hitting Pittsburgh is a once in, every 250-year occurrence. But it did happen in my lifetime. It does happen. Same thing with, I think in the early 90s, there was a minus 77-degree wind chill in Pittsburgh in 1994. That's a once every 250-year occurrence. That also happened in my lifetime. Don't get Al Gore started. I'm not trying to go there with that. What I'm trying to say is, you can go through a natural disaster, and if you believe that government should fill that role, then that's fine. I think that the majority of Americans would say, well, we're making an investment in our farmers, we're making an investment in our people, so that when natural disasters happen, something that's a freak of nature, something that happens maybe once in a lifetime, the government's there to provide assurances for people that they can rebuild and move forward, and we can be a prosperous nation, and we can be a generous nation going from there. I really, the thing that I'm worried about with this is particularly because it's people I love, to be quite honest with you. And even if it weren't people that I love and I know personally, I still would take this position. I think that, and again, your feedback, agree, disagree, you know where to find me on Twitter and on Facebook. I don't want people to use this as an opportunity to look at a county or look at a set of counties in downstate Illinois that's full of Tea Party people, that's full of hardcore conservatives, and say, you didn't want government, so therefore you don't need government, do it on your own. I've been with these folks. These folks weren't saying get rid of all government. They were saying that the tax rates in Illinois can be a little outrageous. The corruption throughout state and local governments can be outrageous. That they're tired of a lot of their tax money from basically 100 counties going to 2 metropolitan areas for the most part, or 3 if you really want to include Springfield in it, but primarily going up to Cook County, and to a lifestyle that they can't even relate to a city they may not have ever been to. They may have gone to a Cubs game every now and then. They may have gone to a Bulls game. They may have gone to a Hawks game. That's pretty much it. So, you look at this, and I don't, I really caution people about this. And I've said this on the other side of the aisle, too. There are times where you simply just cannot jump into this too often. You cannot, there are just times where you don't say, I told you so. There are just times where you don't try to stick it to your political adversaries. They're still your compatriots. They're still your countrymen. Obamacare, you don't want people to not have health care. I mean, that's you can say we told you that this law was bad, that the rollout was going to be bad, that the website may or may not work. Rooting for people not to have health insurance is out of bounds. And I've never done that. I did say that this law was a Frankenstein law, and I mean that. Not even meant that. Mean that. I did say that this president screwed up the politics and the optics of this law by rolling it out and knowing that it was ill-conceived and wasn't ready. And I still stand by those comments. But to sit here and say, hooray, people are losing their health care plans, it's out of bounds. Just the same, whether it's Superstorm Sandy in New York and New Jersey, and what happened with Mitt Romney wanting to tour the area and play president when Governor Christie had to actually have the president there, and how that ended up playing when it came to national politics and people getting angry and Republicans calling Christie a sellout and everything else. At some point in time, you got to say, listen, I can't let you tour the area like I would let the President of the United States tour the area, because he's the President of the United States. He's going to give me the federal funding immediately. And you're a presidential candidate. There's a difference. And I understood that back then. I didn't get mad at Christie. It's just the same when they didn't give the funding in January 2013. I can understand why Christie got mad. I can understand why Republicans from the Northeast got mad. There's a time to play politics. There's a time to say, I told you so. I say all that to say this. This is not the time to do that with conservatives. One, because unless if you've talked to a whole lot of conservatives, unless if you talk to a whole bunch of conservatives, if you're getting your information from 5 Fox News sound bites, a couple things that George Will said over the last 6 months, and something you read in a newspaper, and that's it. You haven't talked to a whole bunch of Tea Party conservatives. Don't assume that everybody wants government to completely go away. So I say that to say, when you apply it to the situation in Illinois, don't sit there and say, well, you didn't want government, so have at it by yourselves. I'm sure you'll find a hammer somewhere. That's not cool because, number one, that's not what the vast majority of conservatives say. They want smart government, good government. They do want it smaller, but they want it to be appropriate. If they deem this to be appropriate, whether it's for them or it's for farmers, heck, in Kansas and in Nebraska, places throughout the country, in Texas, they have tornadoes everywhere. There are some people that even when you continue to settle in floodplains, they sit there and they say, well, these are fertile grounds, and we need farmers, and we need to utilize this land, and therefore maybe it makes sense not to leave these floodplains, regardless of whether or not it's sitting right at the banks of the Mississippi, and we know this is going to happen every 2 to 3 years. There are some that make that argument. Of course, we've heard from some that would say, no, they need to go, and if they continue to get damaged, so be it. Or, from a liberal, highbrow perspective, people say the same thing about those that, live right on the beach. You're not farming on the beach. Why should I have to use federal dollars to help you rebuild an oceanfront property, knowing darn well that every September or every hurricane season, there you sit on the Outer Banks of North Carolina, which are pretty home, but it's about to go into the Atlantic Ocean. I mean, there are people that make that argument, but make the argument when it's 80 degrees and sunny outside. There's a time and a place to have the political argument. Now is not the time to sit there and dig it to conservatives. Just the same when you're watching somebody that is, and even if you want to be stereotypical, and I'm going to use what you would use as a stereotype. If you're talking about Buffy and Ginger, who's sitting there with their 3 perfect kids after their house has gone into the Atlantic Ocean, that's not the time to ridicule them. It's just not. Now, you may agree or disagree with the politics in regards to how they'll be helped, but to sit there and ridicule them, to sit there and say, that's what you get, Buffy, for building on oceanfront property. No. It's not. I mean, aside from not being American, it's just not Christian. Aside from not being Christian, it's just not right. It's just not right. It's not the time for that. And maybe I'm being a little solemn, maybe I'm being a little mellow, but I really would hope that over the course of the coming days, as people see the pictures of the destruction in Washington, Illinois, and in Pekin, Illinois, and Peoria, and places in downstate Illinois. And like I said, I did not live in downstate Illinois, but I spent a lot of time down there. And I'd given several speeches down there. I met a lot of people down there. I'd eaten down there. Broke bread. Spent the night on several occasions. Rode the train back and forth. Bloomington, Normal, all the way down to Springfield. So I have a lot of experience seeing people down there, spending time with people down there, falling in love with people down there. And I mean, not, romantic love, but you get my point. Those people are a part of me. And maybe this is just the solemn protectionism that's coming out. But I really, really hope that at a time of tragedy like this, that people will save a little bit of their political animus for another day, another time. I know that people, they whenever they get an opportunity to stick it to you, they want to stick it to you. Trust me, I'm a guy that ran. I'm a guy that ran for Congress this year. I know what that's like. I know that when you have detractors and they feel like you're vulnerable, they're going to come out with the knives and they're going to come out with the hammers and they're going to try to beat you over the head and stab you in the back, or both simultaneously. Heck, everybody has 2 arms for the most part and 2 hands. But this is not the time for that, folks. This is the time for prayer, if you believe in God, and I would hope that everybody does. And this is the time for action. If you can donate money, if you can donate time, if you can get awareness to those that have lost their resources, do that. This is not the time to ask all the small government conservatives if they want government now. Now is not the time to sit there and say, hey, I thought you hated Obama so much. Are you going to ask him for federal dollars now? Now is not the time for that. Because even if they still don't like Obama, it's still their federal government. It's still their state government. It's still their America. Just like it's my America, your America. It truly is one big team. And we have to take that perspective when these type of tragedies hit. Whether it's Superstorm Sandy last year around election time, or unfortunately, this wave of storms that just devastated downstate Illinois, devastated Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky. So, and I think it even hit parts of Missouri as well. So, I'm hoping that we all take a breath, all take a step back, and all keep the political perspectives that impact things such as natural disasters and funding to help people rebuild, and we keep it in perspective. You know, I'd love to get your feedback. You know where to find me on Twitter, LennyMcAllister. Do apologize for being somber, but I'm hoping that my friends and family, particularly, like I said, those down in downstate Illinois, Washington area, Pekin area, Peoria, that they're okay, that they're blessed, and that they stay resolute so that they can rebuild and be the great Americans that I've always found them to be. I love them all. I love you all. I look forward to talking to you tomorrow. Take care and God bless. Peace.